just a few days ago, Elizabeth Warren talked about how much she doesn't like Bitcoin, and she also gave her opinion on CBDCs and how they are good for the United States. And not only that, but the president of the European Union Bank gave her opinion on CBDCs and how the e-euro or the electronic euro is an important addition to the future of the European economy. But hold yourself, because that's not only that, because also just with all the printing of money that has been happening in the past years, well, a lot of players, a lot of international players are taking their dependence on the US dollar. That's exactly what we're going to talk about this video, so stay tuned. All right, so Elizabeth Warren gave an interview this week explaining how Bitcoin is not backed up by anything, unlike the US dollar, and actually explaining how Bitcoin, you cannot throw darts at it, just like art, because apparently she likes to do that. But you know what? Just, you can see it for yourself.
With Bitcoin, there's no thing that backs it up. And that's what makes it different. It's just belief. You and I assess. You assess the value is going to go down. I assess it's going to go up, and therefore I buy.
So it's more like this artwork.
No, because at the end of the day, I can hang that thing on my wall.
Right.
And I can enjoy it, or I can throw darts at it.
You could sell it for money.
Sure you can. I mean, there are features about it that are the same, but it's not the same. And look, one of the things we have to remember about, there are a lot of things that come within this crypto world. So for example, we could be talking about, instead of Bitcoin, we could be talking about digital currency. Now that's something very different.
I think that's different too. I buy that. I accept that.
That's right, because that's a government-backed electronic transfer, and it can be denominated in dollars. It could be.
All right, so they're talking about CBDCs, and they want you to believe that CBDCs are good for you, just like the FedNow program that it's gonna come out in July. They want you to believe that CBDCs or digital currencies are good for you because, well, let's her explain why it's good for you.
Be denominated in euros. It could be denominated in some new language that's made up. But that has something that backs it up. It has a government that says, if at the end of the day there's a run on this stuff, everybody wants theirs out, the United States government promises there will be something to back it up. And that's what banks are about. There'll be somebody there to back it up. But with Bitcoin,
just like the bank run that happened not too long ago with regional banks, just exactly like that, the U.S. government was there to back up these banks. That's what she's trying to say.
That's not the case. And then, of course, can we do one?
Apparently, that's a thing that the U.S. dollar is backed up by the government. Well, let me tell you, the U.S. dollar is backed up by the belief that you and I give to the system and the belief that you and I give to the government. It's not backed by the government because, let me tell you a story about a currency that is backed up by the government, and it's pretty much worthless, and that's the Bolivar from Venezuela, which was at some point the third richest country in America, or in all the Americas. And because of the bad decisions of the government, well, the currency is worthless nowadays. But according to Elizabeth Warren, if you follow what she is saying, that cannot happen with the US dollar, and that definitely cannot happen with a digital currency or a CBDC, how she doesn't want to call it. because that's exactly what she's describing as CBDC. But anyways, talking about CBDCs, about let's talk about the digital euro, because the president of the European Central Bank talks about the e-euro, and this is what she has to say.
Well, I have a question about. I'm also a good user of electronic money. So my question: you're introducing the electronic euro, as I know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how can switching to an electronic currency help?
Well, two things. Number one, it will be decided in October. So we are preparing the ground. We want to be ready. We want to be trained, but it will not be decided until October 23. The reason I'm personally convinced that we have to move ahead is a situation like the one we are in now. We are dependent on the supply of gas by a very unfriendly country. I don't want Europe to be dependent on an unfriendly country's currency. For instance, I don't know, the Chinese currency, the Russian currency.
And that is because they did that. Because Germany, they had the opportunity to be energy free, but they gave all the power to Russia. Anyways.
The whatever. Or dependent on a friendly currency, but which is activated by a private corporate entity like, Facebook or like Google or anybody like that.
I'm user of Bitcoin too, so I had bought it when it started, and I hope that it also will work through the special system.
Just look at her face, and she's trying to think what she can answer to that question, because she knows that, just like Elizabeth Warren and all these politicians that are against crypto, they know that crypto is the future, Bitcoin is the future, but the thing is that they don't want you to believe that. So anyways.
And I know there are many protests in Europe against the electronic euro. What is the reason?
It's the beauty of Europe. It has different positions. If you ask in Northern Europe, for instance, in the Netherlands, they're quite happy to see the e-euro coming. If you ask a young German man, he'll say, yeah, fine. As I said, I don't want Meta, Google, or Amazon to suddenly come up with a currency that would take over the sovereignty of Europe.
And also, she mentions this because in the northern countries of Europe, it's pretty much a cashless society nowadays. I know Sweden is pretty much a cashless society. Probably Norway, the Netherlands too. And she's gonna mention in a little bit just one thing that it's kind of it amazed me how this thing works, because she's gonna say that something about cash limit deposits, and well, let's her talk about it.
I don't want a foreign currency to become the currency of trading within Europe. So we have to be ready.
No, the problem is they don't want to be controlled. They don't want to.
Yeah, but you know what? Now we have in Europe this threshold above 1,000 euros. You cannot pay cash.
That's exactly what I was talking about. So if you're gonna pay cash in Europe, you cannot pay cash to, I guess, anyone if you have to pay more than $1,000 or 1,000 euros. So if you have to do that, you have to pay by card, which pretty much it tells you that, if you're gonna pay, if you're gonna buy whatever you want, and if it's 1,001 euro, you have to pay by car. That way they have to know where that money comes from.
If you do, you are on the gray market. You take your risk. You get caught, you are fined, or you go in jail. But the digital euro is going to have a limited amount of control. There will be control. You're right.
There will be control. There will be control. See, she knows that the euro will be able they will be able to control the euro. So if she's saying that, do you think people in the Fed, do you think politicians are not aware of this? Do you think they don't know that they can control the dollar? Come on.
You're completely right. We are considering whether for very small amounts, anything that is around 300, 400 euros, we could have a mechanism where there is zero control. But that could be dangerous. The terrorist attacks on France back 10 years ago were entirely financed by those very small anonymous credit cards that you can recharge in total anonymity.
And that's exactly what they're gonna say. You have just a small amount of money that you can work with, because it's probably not good or not safe for you to do it if you work with $300, $400, who knows? I mean, like, maybe they tell you that if you have $500, well, those $500 are going to be tracked, because $500 is way too much. That's probably what they're gonna say. They're probably gonna say that $1,000 is way too much, so they have to control that. That's the key part of this, the control. They know that there's control. They know that they have to control it. So I don't know what else you want to hear, but that's what's going to happen. That's what's coming. Anyways, so because the US dollar has been printed immensely these past years, a lot of countries are kind of like they're tired of having the dollar as a weapon for their economies. A lot of economies worldwide are trying to get rid of their dependence on the dollars. You probably already know about the BRICS countries, and you have now this, which is Iran is reducing the US dollar influence on regional international trade to minimize West's dominance over global economy. Well, if you tell me that's normal because Iran has never liked the West, you probably say, well, yeah, you're right. I mean, like, maybe China doesn't like the West, so China's a BRICS country. But when you start telling me about Saudi Arabia, about Brazil, about other countries that are our allies, like Mexico wanting to join the BRICS countries, well, that's when we talk about like these could happen, something could happen. And actually, not only those countries, but what about France? Because Macron went to China and he met with the president of China, and on his way back he said that Europe must reduce its dependence on the United States. That's what Macron said, and that's why they did the first ever deal of natural gas was done by France and China. So I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I'm not saying that the US dollar might be, or I'm not saying that the US dollar might not be the world reserve currency tomorrow, but the way it's looking, I don't know. I mean, I just, there's a lot of things happening, and that's why I have crypto. That's why I have Bitcoin, because it always gives me that peace of mind that it's always there. It's in the blockchain, and no government can shut it off. I mean, China tried, they couldn't. So it's code. Bitcoin is backed by math and code, not like Elizabeth Warren said, that is backed by nothing. No, the US dollar, unfortunately, is backed by nothing. Remember to always do your own research. My name is Jose, and I'll see you in the next one. God bless. Peace.